Creative Mind, Exploring the Art of Thinking by Forrest Kinney. Balancing, Part 2. The balancing structure gives us a way of understanding conflicts, and it shows us a way out of them. It can be used to end a lot of arguments even before they begin. Let's start with an example that will hit home with anyone who shares a home. It's the issue of cleanliness. Usually, one person in a shared space likes things cleaner and tidier, while the other person isn't so bothered by dirt and disorder. This inevitably leads to conflicts. So let's look at this issue using the balancing structure that we explored in Part 1. The cleaner person will usually get fed up and say, "Well, I'm just trying to keep this place clean, and you are such a slob. You're so messy." Here's how this looks using the hand method rather than the spirals. Clean is good. Being a slob is bad. Essentially, this is the same as saying, "I am good and you are bad," or "I'm doing the right thing and you're doing the wrong thing." This is when arguments are born and communication usually dies. Then it's likely to get worse. The less clean person will respond by using the same way of thinking in reverse, saying, "No, I'm just relaxed about things. They don't have to be spotless and perfectly in order all the time, while you're so obsessive about cleanliness." So this person is also sending the same underlying message. I'm good and you're bad. I'm right and you're wrong. I'm the sensible one and you are the obsessive, crazy one. With both parties feeling under attack for their way of living and both feeling the need to claim they are right, no doubt this is going to get uglier before it gets better. When both are shouting, no one is listening and the situation can improve. The balancing structure offers a way out of this. It clearly shows that both people have something positive about their way of living and also something negative. It shows that both are right and both are wrong. So if the two can look at their conflict in this way, each person no longer feels that the other person is imprisoning them in a box named wrong or bad, and that they must defend themselves. Best of all, when viewed from this perspective, each will begin to see that the other person can help them live a more balanced life. When both parties can see that their behavior has a positive side and a negative side, then they both can move beyond the "you are wrong" sort of violent communication and begin to have a productive discussion. Both can agree that there's a time to be tidy and a time to be relaxed about chaos, especially when kids are in the house. Both parties can see the other has something positive to offer. And then both can agree that some behaviors are messy and some are obsessive. Then both can reach an agreement or compromise by communicating in a nonviolent way. With the balancing structure as a groundwork for agreement, the discussion changes from condemning to conversing, from putting someone down to fixing things up. Let's take another example: money. Among couples, money is the root of many arguments. One person says, "You're using that credit card way too much. You're being reckless." "Me, I'm trying to save. I'm being thrifty." So the other person feels trapped and says, "No, you're just being tight with your money. You're being cheap." "Me, I'm just being generous. Life is short and it's to be enjoyed." Well, once again, this becomes a dead end, with each person caught in the same old blame game. Both are making themselves to be the right one and the other person wrong. The balancing structure provides a common ground, a way to see that both parties have something to offer, and also that both have a tendency toward an extreme that the other can help correct. So each person is helping the other find balance. This is a wonderful way to reframe a relationship, to see each person not as a source of annoyance, but as a necessary and valuable counterbalance that keeps the other person from falling too much to one side or the other. Helping each other rather than hurting each other. The balancing structure helps us move beyond the blame game and start making agreements about what specific behaviors can be considered to be wasteful or reckless, perhaps gambling with the rent money, and when it's appropriate to be generous, perhaps loaning money to a family member in need. Also, when it's good to save money for a vacation or retirement, and when a person is being too tight with money, a modern Mr. Scrooge. So let's turn to another example that is a common issue in relationships, especially when a couple is raising a child together. I'm talking about risk. How much, how little. One person may say, "Come on, just try it. Experience the fullness of life. Take a risk. Be brave. Be fearless. Be lion-hearted." Otherwise, you're just being a coward, and that is bad. The other person will say, "Hold on. You're always so overboard and so darn foolish at times. You're careless. Remember that kayak accident? And remember that bike accident? Well, maybe you don't because you were unconscious afterward for a while. I'm just being cautious to protect you. If it weren't for me holding you back, you'd be dead." Here again, with the balancing structure, both can see that the other person has positive qualities that are helpful. The brave and reckless person helps the cautious person from slipping into cowardliness, and the cautious and sometimes cowardly person helps the brave person when the risks are too high. There are times to be brave, to take risks, to dive into deep waters, but there are times to be cautious and not so foolish because the water isn't deep enough or not safe enough to dive into. We've used adjectives to fill in the balancing structure, but sometimes it works better to do it with nouns. In this case, I tried that and discovered something interesting. To be brave without being foolish is to be a hero. Being a hero is good, being a fool is not. But being too cautious makes us a coward. Now, what is the noun to describe someone who balances being cautious with being brave? I couldn't find a fitting word. This suggests that we don't value or recognize this sort of person as much as the recklessly brave type. So this may reveal an interesting cultural bias. So let's explore one more common area of conflict in relationships: flexibility. Often we make plans with someone and need to change them, and one person is a lot more flexible than the other. So one person says, "You are being so stubborn and fixed. Everything needs to be just as we planned it, right on time, and you always say no to any changes in plans. You're so fixed. While I, on the other hand, am being flexible and open to changes. I'm like a spring that can bend, or a tree that bends with the wind, so it's not toppled over by the storm." So, of course, the other person is now boxed in by being made all wrong, and strikes back using the same weapon of binary thinking. "No, you're like leaves blowing in the wind, not a tree with roots in the ground. I just can't count on you to stick to any plans we make. You're flaky and unreliable, while I'm just being firm and steady, someone you can always count on. I'm the strong link in the chain, and you're being the weak link." Well, this is going nowhere but trouble. With the balancing structure, each side can agree that both flexibility and firmness have a positive value, while being flaky and rigidly fixed have a negative value. They can clearly see that they can help each other rather than hurt each other. Only when they realize they have common ground can they begin to find agreements, and then things will change. I hope you and the other human beings you share your life with will find the balancing structure to be a useful way to step out of these kinds of life-wasting binary arguments and begin communicating, reaching agreements, and enjoying your lives together. In Part 3, we'll apply the balancing structure in another way, a way that helps us understand why people who go to such extremes are often admired, and why the so-called middle way, promoted in spiritual traditions, is often wrongly associated with something that's bland or mediocre.